Something unprecedented happened today. Myles Garrett from the Cleveland Browns decided to request a trade, looking to compete for a championship, and that's a perfect place for San Francisco to come in and swoop him up. But before we get into how that would play out, I want to read his statement he released today. As a kid dreaming of the NFL, all I focused on was the ultimate goal of winning a Super Bowl, and that goal fuels me today more than ever. My love for the community of Northeast Ohio and the incredible fan base of the Cleveland Browns has made this one of the toughest decisions of my life. These past 8 years has shaped me into the man I am today. While I love calling this city my home, my desire to win and compete on the biggest stages won't allow me to be complacent. The goal was never to go from Cleveland to Canton, it has always been to compete for and win a Super Bowl. With that in mind, I have requested a trade from the Cleveland Browns. Myles Garrett. So now let's get into the specifics if San Francisco does want to acquire a player like Myles Garrett, who is a player of the year in 2023 and one of the best edge rushers we've ever seen in the NFL. First, he has 2 more years on his contract. In 2025, he has $19.8 million due, non-guaranteed, and then in 2026, $25 million non-guaranteed. For San Francisco, I do think they can make those numbers work out, especially with a guy like Parag Marathe handling the cap. He can restructure other players' contracts and also give Myles Garrett a brand new contract. He's only 29 and he's still going out there and putting up 14 sack years. And we already know San Francisco is going to be extremely interested in acquiring Myles Garrett this offseason. Since having Bosa, they've been looking for a bookend opposite of him. They had D Ford for a little bit, and now they've recently acquired both Yetur Gross-Matos and Leonard Floyd. But Myles Garrett would change everything for San Francisco. They would have 2 of the best edge rushers across the entire NFL. And this doesn't just make San Francisco's defense better against the pass, but also the run. I think Myles Garrett is one of the better run-stuffing defensive ends across the league. He often engages with the offensive lineman, extends his long arms, reads where the back is going, throws the offensive lineman off, and gets the tackle on the play. And when he's responsible for the edge, he does a fantastic job doing that, setting the edge, funneling the back towards the teeth of the defense. Honestly, there's a million things to like about Myles Garrett's game, and his impact on San Francisco's defense, if they are able to acquire him, would be immeasurable. For instance, many teams just try to chip Nick Bosa throughout the game, leaving in a tight end maybe even sometimes to help block, but with Myles Garrett out there, you can't leave in necessarily 2 tight ends every single time, and there's so many ways you can attack the offensive lineman with 2 elite ends. One thing Robert Saleh and Chris Kasarik could do, for instance, is have Nick Bosa and Myles Garrett on the same side of the offensive line, especially if they think that side's weaker. Or they can put him on the inside and have them rush the guards. Throw in some stunts and Robert Saleh's exotic blitzes and you're creating an absolute nightmare for opposing offenses to deal with. And Kyle Shanahan, I believe, is going to be heavily invested in acquiring a player like that this offseason in Myles Garrett. The question is, will they give up the 11th pick in this draft? First, I do think the Browns would be interested in the 11th pick for Garrett as he no longer plans to play with them and wants to go to a contender, so that may be the best pick they can actually get. As far as San Francisco goes, I think you have to look at their track record in the first round. Sure, they've picked up players like Nick Bosa, but they've also spent picks on guys like Solomon Thomas, Javon Kinlaw, Mike McGlinchey, really players that haven't panned out, at least to their first round billing. And that's without me mentioning the Trey Lance trade and the debacle that was. With this trade, you get a guaranteed Hall of Fame player, and I don't really see a downside for San Francisco. I get the cap may be tight, and they most likely would have to cut a high-end player, but I think Myles Garrett is worth it for what he can bring to this defense, yes, but also what he brings to this team. They would become instant Super Bowl favorites, and I think one of the best defenses we've ever seen in the NFL. But ultimately, these are just my thoughts on Myles Garrett requesting a trade, and I want to hear your thoughts down below. Do you think Myles Garrett will be traded to San Francisco, and how heavily invested do you think they'll be? Also, do you think it's worth San Francisco giving up their 11th pick overall for a player like Garrett who's 29, or should they draft a defensive lineman with this pick, or maybe an offensive lineman? It also would mean a ton to me if you could like and subscribe, and as always, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.